My mother is a complicated person. She can be very difficult at times, and at other times she can be very easy. She's not perfect by any means, but in her heart of hearts, she is a kind and caring person. I would compare her to the weather in the tropics. She could be warm and inviting to the people that she loved, or she could be a fierce hurricane to the people she didn't care for. Uh, I would I like the quote by the actor Bruce Adler, who said, "She's the most complicated person I've ever met, but she's impossible to ever forget." Uh, this speech is a tribute to my mother, Darina D. D'Amico, in preparation for an eulogy as she has Alzheimer's. She was born in the Depression in September 21st, 1935, in Lincoln, Nebraska. She lived through the World War II, the Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, and the dawn of the TV to the internet age. She used to say, "I hate museums because every time I go there, all the displays have things I used to use as a child." She was very close to her father, and she loved her life in Nebraska. She would always talk about it like it was some sort of wonderland. And she was especially fervent a fan of the Nebraska Cornhuskers from the University of Nebraska, where she graduated. Growing up as a woman during this time was very hard. She told me a story one time that when she was at the University of Nebraska, the female students asked the dean of the college if they could wear skirts as opposed to pants because the weather had dropped to -20, and the dean told them no. She applied to Harvard Law School, where she was the only woman candidate at the time, but eventually decided to go into get a PhD in history. One of her professors, though, told her that she was wasting her time as a woman because she was just going to get married and have kids. She eventually met my dad at the University of Florida, and she moved to Cincinnati, where he got a job at the Procter & Gamble. She had many quirks that made her an interesting person. She loved animals, especially horses and dogs. She was super intelligent. She was Phi Beta Kappa member, and she passed this love of knowledge on to her kids. She especially loved fireworks. One time during the 4th of July, she didn't get away from a firework fast enough, and it kind of exploded in her face. And my dad said, "Well, if she dies, we could just turn this into her funeral." She wasn't hurt, though. The characteristic that I would say defined her the most was her devotion to the family. She was willing to sacrifice all of her dreams for her kids. When my brother had his first child unexpectedly, she drove up to help him every month while he was in grad school. She never gave up on us and always encouraged us. She picked us up whenever we stumbled. She always made us believe that we were capable of anything, and she challenged us to be the best versions of ourselves. She worked to give us everything that we wanted and needed. She made sure that we all went to college, and she always found that special present during Xmas, no matter how many stores that she had to go to. In addition to being very devoted, she was also very dedicated to making the world a better place. She was involved in several causes, for particularly civil rights and immigration. She was a Sunday school teacher. She went on mission trips to Central America. She taught ESL to newly arrived immigrants, and she organized meals for the poor through her church. She was also very involved in racial equality. She was a member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, and served on their board. My favorite story concerning that was when my dad worked at Procter & Gamble in the 70s, they made an announcement that they were going to try and promote hiring of African Americans. But the director of the lab was a good old boy from West Virginia. And he had told many of the division supervisors that under no circumstances they were to ever hire an African American. So he didn't use that word. I won't say what he used. My dad had the best qualified African American applicant apply to his division, and he asked my mom what he should do, and she said, Ralph, you have to do what's right. You can't do anything else. And so he hired him, and he gained a reputation of being very pro equality. Later on, when they hired their first PhD candidate, our family was their host family, and that man, Herbert Smitherman, actually is my godfather. She never failed to speak up for her mind. She would write letters to the newspaper, participate in marches and protests. My mom, in conclusion, my mom made me who I am today, and she's probably the most important person in my life. She was devoted to our family and dedicated to making the best world. I think the best quote about motherhood came from Mitch Albom, when he says, "When you look at your mother, you are looking at the purest form of love." Thank you.